If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow or scale your business, you have to ask yourself the question, are you really someone who's just self-employed and everything runs through you? Or are you someone who's looking to actually implement systems, create opportunities for new employees to be able to leverage your time and resources to grow and scale your company? And it's a big question. A lot of people call themselves business owners, but are they really an owner or are they actually just an operator, an employee? And it's a hard distinction to make, but ultimately there's a big difference. And this is something I'm going through right now in my business. There becomes a point in your entrepreneurial journey that you have to flip the switch. You reach a ceiling, right? Everyone only has 24 hours in a day. And presumably if you sleep 8, you only have 16 to get everything else done. So when you reach that capacity, the only way to take yourself to the next level is to start delegating. But what we're going to talk about today is the challenge that most entrepreneurs face, and it's the unknown of the delegation. How do you make sure the person you're delegating to follows through on the tasks? What types of tasks should you give up first? And where do you start? If you're a business owner, you're probably wearing so many different hats, and it's hard sometimes to pinpoint the challenge of the inefficiency and the bottleneck. But hopefully through the conversation today, you'll learn some tips and tricks that have helped me navigate this problem. To describe this challenge, I wanted to share a little bit about some of the processes and decisions that I'm making right now in my operations. Ultimately, I reach the same ceiling that we just mentioned, right? You have a lot of activity, you have new business, you have new ideas, but you only have so much time in the day. And in the beginning, you have to put in the work. You have to be the person to do the marketing, do the sales outreach, handle the follow-ups, do the actual work, right? If you're structuring pricing, coordinating with the customer, getting reviews, all of that becomes on you as the business owner. And that's okay in the beginning. You don't have the capital, the systems, or the revenue stream to support a hire, and that's okay. But one thing that's really important is that a lot of business owners actually take a step backwards because they wait too long in order to hire someone. So what ends up happening is you reach that ceiling, your maximum capacity. You have no more time in the day. You have more leads coming your way, and some of them actually start to slip through the cracks. Some customers don't get the same level of service as others because you don't have the time or resources to give them all the same top-tier experience. And what happens is you lose momentum. And momentum in business is one of the biggest accelerators of a company that can grow from $100,000 in revenue to $10 million in revenue. You want to keep that momentum going so that you continue to spread your reach and your brand. It's actually, you want to hire someone at the point at which you still feel like you can manage everything, but if your business was able to double tomorrow and you feel like you would not be able to support it, that's the perfect opportunity to consider someone to hire. But I think a lot of times business owners or people who are self-employed, things are good during that time, right? You have very low expenses, you don't have any overhead, you probably don't have an office, you don't have employees, and you're making a lot of money. But in the beginning, you need to take that capital and reinvest it back into your business. It's the only way to put yourself in a position where you're actually become an owner, like the owner of the Patriots, the Brooklyn Nets, whoever it might be. They're not active in the organization every day. They're not on the court, they're not coaching the games. All they're making is high-level strategic decisions. There are people who own thousands of companies, so there's a way to do it, but you have to just take that first step. And for me, that was a challenge, right? I'm no different than anyone else when it comes to this topic. I waited until the point where I was at complete capacity. Thankfully, I was able to get myself through that time without having to sacrifice customer service or lose leads, but that just required me to work 90, 100 hours a week or whatever it took. But not everyone should have to do that. There's a better way. I can say once I hired my first loan assistant, everything changed. I had someone there to be able to pick up the pieces and help push the car forward without me being directly involved. But the challenge that I ran into, and this is what I really want to deep dive today, is creating those systems. Because early on in your business venture, especially if it's your first company, your first business you've started, all of the systems, operations, and flow functions and lives in your head. So if you were to bring someone else on, a lot of times people say, how do I know what to tell them to do? Like, where do they fit in my process? If I hired them today, how can they help me? And that's a good problem to have, because ultimately it just challenges you to become a business owner. Think in terms of systems and lay out the roadmap. So one exercise that I found that was really helpful to navigate this challenge is throughout the course of your week, set a timer. Like, you can buy a kitchen timer or use your phone, and every 10 minutes when that timer goes off, take 60 seconds and write down every task that you just did. Throughout an entire week, you'll be shocked of how many things you're able to accomplish. I mean, that's why you're successful as a business owner, right? You can get a ton of things done. But the downside is that trait is a double-edged sword. Business owners are doers. Action is great. But the idea that, why would I tell someone else to do that when I can do it myself? You have to break that mentality. But by doing this exercise, you're able to see all of the things that you did over the course of the week. Then take some time when you have a clear head, maybe a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, whenever your business allows you some pure free time. Focus on the tasks that you had accomplished last week and compartmentalize them into buckets. Did these tasks directly result in revenue? Are these geared towards growing my business? Or are these tasks that do not actually move the needle forward? If you're sending a follow-up email to a customer, that's not going and generating new business. If you're preparing an estimate for a client, that's not something that requires your high-level touch. You're there to build relationships, create new marketing strategies, and move the organization forward. You're not there to send administrative follow-up emails. So find those opportunities within your schedule based on your task list of the things that, one, you enjoy doing the most, but actually create the highest potential for revenue. And in doing that, I was able to figure out, wow, there are so many things that I don't need to. Not because I'm above them, but maybe someone else actually would be better at it than me. And you have to actually have a self-reflection. Like, maybe you're not the best person in organization. Maybe your skill isn't on the phone closing the deal. Maybe it's actually building relationships or marketing. Like, what is the thing that you are actually really good at that moves your business forward? And it's a really helpful exercise. And at that point, what you're going to end up with is this giant task list of things that you don't enjoy doing, take you the longest amount of time, and don't actually move your business forward. Perfect. Now take those and figure out what type of role you need to create to offload those tasks. And part of that will be creating that system. And this is a really difficult thing for a lot of people to figure out early on, because again, a lot of the systems are just in your head. You just inherently have this web of 500 different tasks floating around at any given time, and you just prioritize them based on your own, arbitrary decision, which is fine, right? You're the business owner. You can do whatever you want. But if you really want to be an owner, you need clear systems, because delegating tasks to an assistant isn't a system. You need your assistant to have a clear definition of their role and be able to act on tasks based on the procedures you set in place without you getting involved. I mean, how awesome is it when an email comes across your desk and you know, oh, my assistant will take care of that? Because they know when they see that email, they're going to respond with X, Y, or Z in terms of a response, and they're going to handle the follow-through. But if you don't set a system, what ends up happening is that email comes through, your assistant doesn't know if they should answer it or if you should answer it, how to answer it, what's the next step, what happens if the client doesn't answer in 2 days, what's our next step? Do I put them in the CRM? When they're in the CRM, what do I do? Do I update you? When do I update you? That system needs to be set in place. I think the important part here is it doesn't have to be perfect. I think one of the biggest drivers of business growth is imperfect action. Not irrational decisions, there's a big difference. But taking these first few steps gives you enough to be able to take some sort of action. Obviously, as you're going through this process, of course, there's more steps you'll have to take, right? Figuring out what's your budget capacity, how much could you pay someone? What's the going rate for someone in the marketplace? Do you need someone full-time or part-time? Can they be remote? Do they have to be in person? All those little details you can figure out. But first, identify your problem. Like, where is your bottleneck? What are the things you don't need to be doing that don't move your business forward and you don't actually enjoy taking care of? And as you start to put this together, for the right person, this opportunity is huge in the sense that admit and accept your own shortcomings. Like, you are not Google. Someone who comes to work from you doesn't have a 1,000-page SOP for every single process and procedure in your business. Neither do you. Like, you are not the same as a corporation yet. And accept that and use that to your advantage, because for the right person, they actually take enjoyment in being able to build with you. Someone who plugs in as a cog to the wheel is very different than someone who wants to be boots on the ground, have an influence, share their opinions, and build something with you. And those are ultimately the best employees. For me, I've gotten really fortunate with my first hire. He embodies that to a core. My assistant wants to be involved in the processes. He wants to help improve the systems. And he's okay with, we're going to figure out how to build the plane in the air for some things, right? You need a baseline system first, but use that to your advantage. That's something you have over a lot of big corporations don't. If someone's hiring for a marketing position, and I'm doing this right now for myself, if you want, marketing is such a broad spectrum, right? You can have people who edit videos, people who do social media, people who film videos, but within the marketing sphere, you have different types of people. Some people just want to plug in to one component of marketing, versus some other people want to actually own the strategy and they want to have an impact on the systems. What is our brand vision, right? What's our messaging look like? How are we coordinating with our referral partners? What's going on with our CRM? What is our CRM campaign? What's our messaging in our CRM campaign? Can we make it better? Does it align with social media? Are we hosting and taking the most advantage of the events that we're putting on? Like, where are those contacts going? Are we following up with them? What's our email open rate? Like, that's very different than someone who just wants to do graphic design. So you have that advantage over big companies, because those types of people early on, those bigger companies aren't looking for. So use that to your advantage. And I found some really awesome candidates who get really excited with that opportunity. And then figure out the systems later. But get a general idea before you onboard them of where they're going to fit in your process. Figure out the things that you need to determine together, and then make that clear. Hey, there are 3 main objectives for this role that in the first 3 months, we're going to sit down one at a time and we're going to hammer out a system. We're going to make it so that you know what you're supposed to be doing, you have some autonomy, and then we set boundaries for when I need to be involved. That is all you really need to get started, because the rest of it you'll figure out. Like, no one has all the answers. Even big corporations, they're always changing policies and procedures, optimizing and improving. So don't box yourself into this perfect square. Nothing has to be perfect. Take that sequencing, implement it, take action, and adjust later. And look at the worst possible outcome, right? What's the worst possible thing that happens? You spend a little bit extra time during the week creating this role, interviewing candidates, you hire someone, you spend 2-3 months in salary, you spend 10 or 15 grand. Okay, that's your worst case. You lost a few hours, you spent 10 or 15 grand. Best case, this person crushes it out of the park and you increase your sales by 50%. Do the math. How much do you make on your average sale? What would the increase in revenue be? Bet you it's a lot more than 10 or 15 grand. So don't box yourself in to, oh my God, what happens if it doesn't work out? Then just move on. What happens if you don't close the next sale you talk to? You go knock on someone's door and you're selling solar and they say, no, what are you going to do? Move on to the next. So don't let yourself get boxed into that mentality. I'm looking forward to sharing more updates as I continue on my journey, but hopefully this is helpful in you and your business.